Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, today on the channel, we are taking a look at 7th Citadel, and I was a backer of this game, and this is the spiritual follow-up to 7th Continent. So I reviewed 7th Continent quite a while ago, and while there were some things I liked about the game, I ultimately bounced off of it. And that was mainly because of the kind of survival mechanisms in that game. I just wasn't having a lot of fun in the game, even though I liked the setting, I liked the theme, and I liked a lot of what the game has to offer. Now, I haven't gone back and watched my old review, so I may say some contradictory things in this review about 7th Continent, but that would just mean that I have maybe changed as a gamer since the time that I reviewed that. So in this review, I'm going to try to keep the spoilers to a bare minimum because this is a game that is all about discovery. However, not showing any spoilers would be very hard to do, and it would inhibit my ability to discuss the game. So if you don't want to see anything that you might discover while playing the game, maybe just listen to this review. The cards for the land, for the discovery, for the adventure that I'm going to show are all from the introductory scenario. I might show some cards when it comes to my character that are a little more advanced. But I have played the introductory scenario twice, and I am a couple scenarios into the first of the main threats. And these threats take the place of the curses in 7th Continent. So in 7th Continent, you were trying to solve a curse. And you could actually mix as many of those curses into your adventure as you wanted to. And so it had a little more of an open world sandbox feel, whereas 7th Citadel is a little more focused on the threat at hand. You can only play one threat at a time, and the threats are broken up into kind of a branching scenario system where, depending on how well you do, you will move on to subsequent scenarios within that threat. And then once this threat is done, then you can move on to another threat. You can play the threats in any order, but this is the suggested order is Dodicum's Awakening and then Drums of Desolation. And then there is an additional threat that you can buy as a separate expansion. And I actually did buy that just recently because I am liking the game enough that I do want that additional threat, but that did not arrive in time for me to get to this video. So 7th Citadel, like 7th Continent, is a game about discovery. It's a game about adventure where you are taking a character, and I am playing as Denholm. And one of the best things about this game is it scales down perfectly to playing only one hero, so a true lone wolf mode. And that is one thing that I really appreciate, and that's the only way that I've been experiencing this game. And to tell you the truth, I kind of think that 7th Citadel, like 7th Continent, really is just a solo game. But if you want to play with more than one hero, you could also do that very easily. I've seen quite a few people on YouTube playing solo two-handed, but I am playing as one hero. And each of the heroes is double-sided, so you can pick the gender that you want to play. But you will be taking one of those characters, and this is kind of a post-apocalyptic fantasy world. I kind of get the mix of some science fantasy, maybe something like Gamma World, mixed with the old Horse Clan novels. It's kind of a new feudal science fiction, weird fantasy. It also does kind of remind me the setting of a lot of those early 80s French animated films like Fantastic Planet or Gondahar. I think that was called Light Years in the US, and Time Masters. So if you like those kinds of things, you might really enjoy the setting of 7th Citadel as well as the overall theme. So here we have the setup here. So this is kind of a general setup. This is kind of at the end of the introductory scenario, what you might see here. And so my character, Dom Hall, let me find my standee here. You will start in one tile. And as you are exploring, you will be drawing lots of cards from these library of cards to determine what you have discovered when you take certain actions. And there are a lot of cards. There are 3 full boxes of these cards. And another thing that I really like is This game, as far as components go, as far as the components you are interacting with as a board game, it's all cards. There are no chits for anything. I absolutely love that. It's a very easy game to set up and put away, and to stay on top of things as far as the components go. I don't like chits. I don't like a lot of chits, and they did a really good job of keeping everything focused on the cards. But on a turn, you basically do the same thing every turn. And this is another thing I really like. The turn system, the structure of this game is very, very simple. On a turn, you will take an action, you will determine the outcomes of that action, and that is a turn. When you're playing with more than one player or you're playing with more than one hero, you will elect a hero to be the main hero of that turn. And they will be the focus of that action, and they will have to accomplish that action. And that same active hero can take multiple turns in a row. There really is no turn structure. And there are a whole bunch of actions you can take. Moving, swimming, going to sea, visit, pathfinding, find my bearings, dodge, climb, dig, greet, speak, play music, perform, cure, rest. All of these icons are different actions. However, you never need to memorize these things. All of these icons will be presented on the cards when it comes time to take that action. So for instance, if you were on this card here, really the only action you could take on this card is a listen action. I believe that's called a listen or hear or spy or something. What is that action? And you know what? It doesn't even really matter what that action is called. It's called a listen. Anything that you see in a white square like that is an action. There will also be cards that come off of these cards, and those are exploration cards. And there are a whole bunch of exploration cards, and those are divided into basically kind of a challenge levels. So we have levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 different levels of exploration cards. And those will range from combat encounters to other types of actions you can take, like jumping or swimming or swinging. And as you reveal those, then those will be replaced by the green-back or the yellow-backed cards. And that is how you fill up your map. And so in this introductory scenario, you are in a citadel, and the citadel is being destroyed by these underground beings. And it's all collapsing down around you. And you need to escape. And as you are escaping, you will learn a little bit about the world that you are in. You might encounter NPCs that need your help. You might encounter doors that are locked and are very difficult to open. We'll talk a little bit about how to overcome the challenges in a minute. Actually, let's go ahead and do that now since I'm here. So this door is locked, and to unlock it, you can take an unlock action. And this tells you how many cards you have to spend at a minimum. You have to exert yourself because each of the characters has a certain number of action cards. And these action cards represent your character's stamina. They represent their endurance. This is how much they can exert themselves to overcome those actions. And then the star, that represents how many successes you need to get on however many cards you play. And you will look at the full stars and count those up. And then you can also combine half stars to make full stars. Now, one of the things that I think is different, and if I'm remembering correctly, from 7th Continent, and one of the reasons why I didn't like that game so much is you had to do a lot of crafting, and there are a lot of survival elements. And one of the only ways to get cards back into your useful deck was to hunt for resources. And it was very gamey, the way you had to reset up the cards if you wanted to recharge the hunting. It was a game that really, I felt, didn't respect my time as a game player. But they have changed that system in 7th Citadel. There really are no survival mechanisms here. You don't need to craft items, and you don't need to hunt. And so eliminating those two things from this game did help me enjoy this game a lot more than 7th Continent. One of the things they added was a full health tracking system. But what's really cool about this game is, in the way this game scales, is the fewer heroes you are playing as, the more health they start with. So when you are playing with the single hero, you start with 45 health, which is a lot. And that's really cool because at any time in the game, you can exchange health as a currency to recharge your action cards that have been discarded. And there are 3 levels of difficulty. So if the normal mode of difficulty is you can trade 1 point of health for 2 random cards drawn from your discard pile. I am playing on easy mode, and that means that I get a 3-to-1 ratio. So for every 1 point of health I spend on a recovery action, I can recharge 3 discarded action cards. And for me, that has made the game a lot more fun than it was in 7th Continent. But as you are working through the Citadel, you will be discovering these random action cards, or not random, but you will be building the map from these drawn action cards, not at random. You will be following the icons on the map to draw the next card. Sometimes those cards, there might be 3 different 26s in the deck. And so there is a hierarchy of how you draw. You always draw the greenbacks first. And then if all the greenbacks are drawn, then you draw the yellow back. Depending on what scenario you are in, sometimes you will draw certain cards, because some cards, and let's see if I can find one, some cards will have a certain icon on the card. I don't have any out, but they will have an icon associated with the scenario that you are in. So you might come to this certain location multiple times throughout multiple scenarios, but because you will be forced to draw the scenario specific 19 or 019, then something might be different on this card. And I think that is really cool. And I don't remember that being in 7th Continent at all. But as you're playing through the threats, you will see that each scenario has its own icon. And so when you draw an adventure card and you see that icon on one of the adventure cards, then that is the card that you will draw. And I really, really do like that system a lot. But you will find other prisoners that have gone mad. You will start learning a little bit about the vegetation. There is some very creepy vegetation in this game. You might have some combat with some different enemies. You might come across a boss challenge that you have to overcome. And that is a more complex challenge that has multiple steps to victory. And then finally, you will take a jumping action and you will escape the Citadel, and then you will move out into the wilderness. And that's when the introduction ends and you get to go on to the main threat. And that's also where another element that I really enjoy is introduced. But before we get to that, I do want to show my character real quick. And so my character is Denham. And in my game that I am playing right now, I am armed with a padded gambeson and I have a gladius. So as you can see, for those of you familiar with 7th Continent, it's already pretty different. This is a more traditional fantasy game. You have armor and you have actual weapons that you can use. And you don't need to craft these. You do need to build up your settlement in order to start adventures with certain gear. But these will stick around for almost an entire adventure. Sometimes you will be told to roll a d6, and if you roll a 1 or maybe a 1 or a 2, then that item becomes damaged and you can't use it for the rest of that scenario. I am also on the threat on the scenario that I am working on now. I am joined by a companion, and this companion is named FM the Blind, and she's going to help me discover something that I need to find. Right now, I am unleashed. So we have these green cards. These are bonuses. These are boons that you get, and you can spend those to do additional actions or to help you take actions. There are also curses. So these red-backed cards, you might become tired, or you might be starving if you don't have food in your village. And so there are a lot of different things that you can, a lot of different ways to interact with these adventure cards. These adventure cards, there are all kinds of different cards in these decks. And it feels to me like there is a lot more variety in the kinds of cards and in the way that they are used as compared to 7th Continent. We also have these cards here that are kind of complex cards that open up like books. Man, that is super cool. Some of these cards are really generic, where they will only have stat blocks, and those stat blocks will be used in conjunction with other cards. It seems like a really smart way to use these cards, and I'm always kind of surprised at the unique way that these cards are used. But a character will have their main way of moving around, and then depending on how many heroes you are playing with, you will have your maximum hand size and your maximum weight value that you can carry. And right now, my discarded cards, so I have quite a few action cards, so I can take quite a few different actions. These action cards also have these class icons. So we have like a thief, a magic user, and a strength user, kind of like, a wizard, a rogue, and a warrior. And those can be combined with different supplemental actions that you can take in order to increase your successes or in order to give you different types of ways that you can use those actions. I also have this starting quest. So Denham starts with this quest called Blood Ties. So I'm trying to find this flag pendant here, this icon here with a pendant. If I ever find that in those cards, then I can draw that and that will progress Denham's starting quest. So there are individual quests for the characters. There are also side quests. And I did eventually find this metal wire, which can help me unlock doors, but I never got around to unlocking that door in that introductory scenario. So that leads me to believe that there's actually quite a bit of replay value in this game because there are things that I still have not discovered just in the introduction. And I think that is really cool. But once you leave the starting Citadel, and that's really where the game kind of opens up at that point. That's what I'm trying to say. And when that does, you will be told to take out one of these community sheets. And this is one of my favorite things about 7th Citadel. I love a good settlement phase in a game. My favorite phase in Kingdom Death Monster is the settlement phase. I love building up the settlement. I love building up different buildings and working out kind of a hierarchy of things to build. What do they call those? Tech trees, that kind of thing. And that's by far my favorite element in Kingdom Death Monster. I like the settlement phase more than the actual showdown phase with the monsters. But the settlement in 7th Citadel is super, super cool. So each settlement will have this ground shiver level. And this is an item that you always have with you that helps you detect these burrowers from underneath. And those are the things that are destroying the land. And that will help you explore. It will keep you safe. It will give you clues as to when something bad is about to happen. And then each of your settlements will have 4 different things that you are working towards: your goods productions, your defense, your knowledge, and your influence. So production is kind of your food value, and you need to keep that high at certain points throughout the scenario. It will tell you to check your production level. If you're lower than a certain total, something bad might happen. Your defense, your citadel will be attacked, and that's kind of what I'm working on right now. As a matter of fact, I was able to dig up this big kind of siege weapon in this scenario that I'm on now. And it was really cool. It took a lot of effort. I had to spend like 15 action cards to do it, but it allowed me to bolster my defense. I thought that was super cool. You also want to keep track of your knowledge and your influence. And one of the main ways you do that is by building all of these different buildings. So we have things like the watchtower, the outer wall, the grain silo, the forum, the cemetery, the academy, the guild. We have these 4 random buildings, and there are cards in the library of cards that have different types of buildings that you can build that you don't know at the start of the game. We have an herbalist shop, an apothecary, a pen, and all of these different buildings, they will all add something to your game. And man, I really, really do love this system. Because at the beginning of each of the scenarios in the threat, you will have a production phase, or what do they call it? They call it the preparation phase. And these buildings will do certain things during the preparation phase. For instance, one of the first buildings that I built was the smithy. And the smithy says that you can create weapons and armor during that preparation phase. And so that is how my character started with the Gladius. The padded gambeson is something I found on my adventure. If you build the watchtower during the preparation phase, you get to bolster your defenses. The forum allows you to strengthen your knowledge, to gain more knowledge. The cemetery and the apothecary, those both have different things. And so you really can plan out your scenario here. And the main way you plan out your scenario is you try to find these Hope Reborn cards. And these are basically experience. So Hope Reborn is basically 1 experience, and a Glimmer of Hope is kind of a 1/5 of an experience point. You can combine 5 of these to gain 1 Hope Reborn. And as you gain these things with this book icon, those are going to be your quests. And so you can keep track of your quest. Your quest deck is an ongoing deck of cards that you always have access to. And even in the introductory scenario, there were, I think, 2 or 3 quests that I still haven't solved. And so again, there is some replay value in these scenarios. But as you spend those Hope Reborn cards, when you go back to your Citadel, you will get to unlock different nodes on this skill tree. And you start in the center and you work your way out through connecting nodes. And the different nodes will have different things that you can unlock. These shovel symbols that will allow you to build buildings. You have these kind of these laurel symbols. Those will allow you to pick out different types of cards to add to your character's action deck. And we have your basic skills here. So a whole bunch of basic skills. We have advanced skills, and we also have reflex skills. So there are a lot of different ways that you can build out your character. And by focusing on cards that have those particular icons, you can build a magic user, you can build a rogue, you can build a warrior, or you can combine those to make kind of multi-class characters. We also have this hand with an X symbol on it, and that is a way to cull your deck. So as you are adding a whole bunch of new, more powerful skill cards, you may want to focus on some of those classes. So you may want to banish, you may want to cull some of the cards that don't have those icons. So you can focus on one or more of those skills instead of being a jack of all trades. And again, I think that is a great thing. I like these kinds of deck building systems where you have good opportunities to get rid of old cards that you no longer need. I think one of the most interesting things you can do, one of the most interesting actions, level up actions you can take are these feathers. Those feathers are scouting actions. And when you scout, you get to actually take this big plastic map with these built-in sleeves, and you get to add cards to this map to show the things that you have discovered while you are playing. And this is an ongoing thing that will constantly be built upon. And as you scout, you can send your scouts, if you take that scouting level up action, you can send your scouts in a certain direction and you can unlock those cards. And then the next time you come back to your Citadel, you get to remove that and turn it over to discover what your scouts have discovered while they are out scouting the land. And all of these things really matter. All of these things have tangible qualities that will add to your experience while you are playing the game. Your little sheet here, your settlement sheet, also has a map here that you can take notes on, because this is a game that a lot of people do encourage players to take notes. That will help quite a bit. And you also have here, you have a place to keep track of your side quests. Because one of the buildings that you can build, I think it's the tavern, during the preparation phase, if you are at the Citadel, you may take a 66 card. So you may take a side quest card. Then that's something that you have access to. That is a side quest that you can do at any time while you are playing the game. So that does add that kind of sandbox element. Now, the final piece of component here, the final thing that will add to your game is this dialogue book. And this is definitely something new that was not in 7th Continent. And this is a book of paragraphs that you will read at certain points. And this isn't just reading. There is some choose your own adventure style elements here. This book also interacts with the map. It interacts with your community sheets. It interacts with the cards. Sometimes these you will read here to draw a certain card. You will go to your card library and draw it, and then that will interact with this card. Sometimes there are built-in challenges in this book, and none of the passages are too long. You're not going to be pausing your game, reading multiple pages for many, many minutes as you are playing. Most of them are very short sentences, very short paragraphs, I should say, and most of the time they've been fairly interesting and I think pretty well written. I have been very interested in learning about this world and in learning about the things that are going on. And there really is a great sense of mystery and discovery in 7th Citadel. I think that all of the ways that all of these different elements work together really do create this kind of cohesive game that you're always excited to do something new. And that's when the game shines brightest. I'm really looking forward to diving deeper into this scenario. The scenarios sound interesting. It sounds like they're going to be varied. And like I said before, there are definitely things just in the scenarios that I have played that I have passed up, or I didn't have the time to go and discover. So you could easily replay this game. You could probably replay each scenario 3 times and keep discovering new things. So each time you play a scenario, you will keep your bookmark at the page that you are in. And then when you save your game, you can pack everything up and then just turn to this bookmark and reset up the game. And that's another big bonus, is that the game is very easy to set up, and it is also very easy to save and very easy to jump back into the action. If I had everything in the box right now, I could probably be playing in a matter of maybe 5 to 10 minutes at the most. I would be shocked if it took me 10 minutes to get back into the action. So those are a lot of the things that I like. And you might be thinking, wow, you're very positive on this game, especially considering that I bounced off a 7th Continent pretty hard. But there are still a couple of things that bug me about this game. And I don't think there's any way around the main thing that bugs me. And even though I think all of these cards are interesting, having to constantly manage all of these cards really becomes a chore, and it becomes a frustrating chore for me. And I know they wanted to keep this as a game where you are constantly discovering new things as you are playing, as you are building your maps, as you are working through all of these different cards. Every single one of these cards, as you're playing the game, has to be drawn. And they didn't group cards together in a scenario. So it's not like, okay, I'm playing this one scenario, so I know all of the cards that I'm going to be playing are in the 200 stack. No, they are scattered throughout. There are multiple cards. You're constantly having to thumb through these cards. You're putting cards away. You're taking cards out. And for me, it does kind of interrupt the flow of the game. Now, when you draw a new card, it is exciting. But what I find I'm doing most of the times, I'm kind of keeping these off to the side. I'm playing, I come across here, I have to draw some cards, so I pull the tray over, I find the cards I need, I pull them out, I put them down, I put this back, I flip this card over, and then it says, now draw a card 50, so I go back here to card 50, I flip that out, then it says, turn to the dialogue book, so then I take the dialogue book out, I have to draw another card, so I have to put that away, I have to take this tray out, and then draw another card, and this card says to take out your map, so then you have to take out your map, and then you have to note something on your Citadel chart. And all of a sudden, this nice kind of like clean game, you've touched every piece and you've knocked cards around. It can just be a little frustrating. And one of the other things that I still don't like is this card play system. I just don't find it very exciting. And it's kind of the core mechanism of the game, so that can be kind of an issue. If this was the game that I was making, or if I could tell somebody to make this game for me, I would simplify all of this system by just having the characters have a stat, and that stat represents a pool of D6, like Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, and you roll dice to determine if you have passed or failed, and then your items could add bonuses to that dice pool. I would greatly prefer if that used that system, because what I find most of the time is this just kind of gets slow and it can get a little convoluted, and it's one of those puzzle type pieces that I know a lot of modern gamers like because they like feeling clever when they can build a cool combination and do something neat. I don't get any satisfaction out of that. And I often find that this is not very dramatic. It's not as dramatic for me. It's not as exciting for me as rolling dice and hoping and then being able to manipulate those dice. It feels very cerebral when I was hoping that this game would feel a little more exciting. However, so those are two elements that I didn't like in 7th Continent, and I still don't like in 7th Citadel. Just that basic card play and the constant management of cards and all of the things. Thank God there aren't any chits that you have to manage, and there's not a lot of bookkeeping, really. The bookkeeping is actually kind of fun because you're building up your community, you're building up your citadel and your fort, and you get to see that progress. But I'm not bouncing off of this game, because the main thing that I didn't like about 7th Continent were those survival mechanisms, were those things of having to hunt in order to regain your cards. I didn't like that. I didn't like how you had to recharge those by, I think you had to like save your game on the hunting tile and put everything away in order to recharge the hunt. I can't remember exactly, but I just found it just not fun. And I also didn't like having to craft your items and how they were always breaking. It just felt like I was this constant kind of uphill battle to survive. This feels more like an adventure, and it is a more straightforward adventure. The world is still mysterious and weird. It's still interesting. It's not quite as colorful. One of the things that I did like about 7th Continent is the color on the cards. This is a very kind of grayish brown game because the world is post-apocalyptic. Something has happened. I don't know. I haven't looked through all of these cards. You might very well discover some really interesting, brightly colored, weird, otherworldly places. So that's not really a complaint, but that's just something to keep in mind. But yeah, so because this game rejected those survival mechanisms of hunting and having to craft items, I'm actually enjoying the game a lot more. And I'm finding that I am more willing to overlook the things that I don't like, because I'm enjoying the things that I do like a whole heck of a lot more than I enjoyed in 7th Continent. But yeah, I mean, just look, this game does so much with so little. I don't want to say little, because there's like 1,000 cards here. So that's a lot of cards, but these are the components. I mean, this game tells a huge, adventurous, epic tale without tons of minis, without tons of chits, just a few books and a pamphlet. And I'm enjoying the adventure. I think it's really cool, especially playing on that easy mode, which just lets me, it's almost maybe too easy, because as a solo player, starting out with 45 health, and at any time you can trade health for action cards, you can recharge a lot. And I appreciate that, because I'm not playing this game for the challenge. If you lose, so one of the ways you lose, or the only way you really lose in this game, is if all of the heroes you're playing at go down to 0 health, so they're unconscious. Well, if you're only playing solo, then hey, if one of your heroes is out, then you are out. And if you fall unconscious, if you lose, you're supposed to start the campaign from the very beginning. And that is definitely not something that I would do. If I ever lose, I am just going to recharge and continue to play, just because I'm not interested in the difficulty of this game. I'm not interested in solving the puzzle of 7th Continent or 7th Citadel. I'm interested in the discovery, and having to start completely over is just not something that I am going to do ever. So if that is something that bothers you, just house rule it and keep playing and just keep focusing on the fun that you can have. So yeah, so that was my review of 7th Citadel. This is a game that I was hoping would solve all of my issues with 7th Continent. It didn't end up solving all of my issues, but I am putting more weight into the things I like, and I'm able to overlook the things that I don't like in order to keep going with this game, and I'm really excited to keep playing. This is one of those campaign games that I'm pretty sure I'm going to at least play through one of the major campaigns, one of the major threats, and probably all of them. So, all right, you guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this review. We will talk to you later. Bye-bye.